Hello, everybody. I'm Chip Chimp, and welcome to my review of the movie Spider-Man: No Way Home. So this movie, in my opinion, was awesome. I'll give an actual score out of 10 at the end. So if you want to know what that is, stick around. And just so you know, there will be no spoilers up until the review out of 10. So if you want no spoilers for this movie, go ahead and watch. There may be some discussion at the end where I talk about, exciting things or like more specific details. So to give a brief overview of what the movie's about. So in the trailer, you can see that Peter is trying to talk to Doctor Strange and kind of change everyone's mind about knowing who he is. And in doing that, the spell goes wrong, and some, big villains come through from other universes, and then it's Peter's job to, take care of them, because obviously you can't have villains running around the street. It's kind of dangerous. So that's the premise of the movie. That's basically what happens without going too much in depth. That's what is shown in the trailer. How was it then? Well, one of the first things I do to judge if I like a movie is, does it make me feel something? Am I happy, sad, whatever? And honestly, this movie made me feel so many things. I was like, wow, this is a whole roller coaster. It was exciting, it was tense, it was sad and upsetting, and there was like super hype moments as well. Some things that's like, well, I didn't expect this to happen, or maybe I did know it was going to happen, and it just like they executed it really well, and I was like, wow, this looks so cool. Some of the sound design was great. There's a few parts like when you have the spider sense, you kind of get like the sensation that the sounds change, and then the visual kind of like pans out. I think it was like a fisheye, or maybe it was more zoomed in. It made it feel like you kind of had this sense as well, and then you can tell like he's going about like trying to figure something out. It was interesting to see some of the old villains, like I mentioned in the trailer. You can see like Doctor Octopus and Green Goblin showing up at some point, and you get to learn a little bit more about them and see these villains again. So it's kind of a nostalgia, and I feel like they executed the nostalgia well in this movie. They kind of hinted on some of the old movies and expanded on these villains a little bit without making it like shoving it down your throat or just like making a movie only based on nostalgia, because it added new things. Generally, I don't really like movies that just only rely on nostalgia and just like, how much more can we milk this thing? But this one I feel like they did good with it, and like I said, it was well executed. The visuals, super hype. There's a few like really iconic moments that I'm just not gonna forget about because they were so cool. Like, I can't say what they are, but they're really cool. You watch the movie, you're gonna know a few of the scenes I'm talking about, and it's like it's just imprinted in my brain. Like, wow, when that happened, that was like really cool. So even though I'm praising this movie so much, there were a few downfalls where it's like this part was a bit confusing, or like if they had just done this instead of this, then like maybe it would have made more sense, or maybe they could have avoided this thing. And a few of the characters didn't have great like motivations for why they're doing what they're doing. Once again, without going into too much detail, that's kind of all I can say. But overall, I don't think this was detrimental to the movie. It was just like a bit confusing if you think about it too much. But regardless, it still held up pretty well, and I think it was an enjoyable experience as a movie. It had a compelling story, it had great sound and visuals, it had cool character design, made you feel so many things. It really moved the story forward for Peter and his friends and people he knows, and the Marvel Universe as a whole. Solid, great movie. I'm going to have to give this like a 9 out of 10. It's pretty good. And like I said, it's not perfect. It's just a few small things I could change. But regardless, I think this is a great movie. I already watched it twice. And, definitely would recommend seeing it. If you enjoy Spider-Man and you haven't seen this yet, what are you doing? If you enjoy Marvel and you haven't seen this yet, what are you doing? Now, if you're not into either of those, I mean, it's still an exciting movie. Maybe you don't take as much out of this, I'm not sure. Uh, but I think you can still enjoy the experience because it, introduces all the characters well. So you kind of get an idea of who everyone is without having too much background knowledge of all the previous movies with like Spider-Man and whatnot. So that's the end of the non-spoiler section. Now there's a few things I want to touch on, just like spoiler related. So if you've already seen the movie and you're still watching, great, thanks. Thanks for having you here. So the first thing we want to talk about is the end credit scene, the first one. In the scene, we see Eddie Brock sitting in the MCU universe, and he's talking to a bartender and like asking questions about Peter Parker. The thing that confuses me though, Venom and Eddie Brock haven't met Peter Parker and don't know about him. So how could they have came to the MCU universe in the first place? I was very confused about this. To be honest, I haven't seen Venom 1 and 2 yet. Maybe it explains it well. When I asked someone about it, I was told that essentially all the Venoms from every universe are connected somehow, like it's a big hive mind. So the other Venoms know about Peter Parker. So because they know, all the Venoms know, and then he's able to come through. Maybe? Seems a bit weird, but it's possible, I guess. It's like an alien species, so sure. And whatever, like it's still going to be a cool scene, and now we get possibly Venom in the MCU in the future, so that could be really exciting. Another thing is the Daily Bugle. You see J. Jonah Jameson starting off in his apartment, and then he gets this like big platform because people are all upset with Spider-Man, and then he's trying to track down Spider-Man and make him like this bad guy. He's not really that bad of a guy. Like, you obviously see what's happening. He's out there trying to hunt him and frame Spider-Man for doing everything wrong. But he's literally a guy throwing grenades at a building, Green Goblin. There's a giant electric man who just blew up the window. There's a sandstorm man. These guys are all like fucking demolishing the building. And you see Spider-Man just like running away or trying to stop them. And like, you're trying to frame Spider-Man. Bro, what is wrong with you? Clearly, this is the most biased news reporting I've ever seen. Obviously, he is the most biased news reporting we've ever seen. This is like conspiracy theory guy who just got propped up. The point is, at the end of the movie, everyone doesn't know who Peter Parker is, so maybe they're setting up for Peter to work at Daily Bugle in the future, if there's another Spider-Man movie. The grandma scenes were really funny. Just gonna put that out there. Another thing is, I was really interested, now that I've watched this movie, there's like other content that was hinted at that I want to watch or rewatch, like the old Spider-Man movies, Daredevil, Venom 1 and 2, like I said, never saw them, but now they're hinted. There's a few things I could watch. Maybe that's part of their movie. They make a really good movie and it's like marketing for their other movies. That's kind of the Marvel way right now, but it worked. I'm intrigued. I kind of want to watch more. So what I was talking about earlier with like these plot holes was kind of like the specifics of the spell are really confusing. It's also like Doctor Strange is clearly capable of taking people out of the spell and saying, not you, not you, not you. Because in his first question, he says, do you remember that party on whatever? Clearly Doctor Strange knows about the party unless he just made something up. And then Wong is like, no, I don't. So he made Wong forget and probably everyone else that was there forget. But he remembers it, so he's able to say, like, I remember it. When he's casting the spell for Peter at the end, obviously Peter knows who he is, so he excluded Peter from it. But he took everyone else out. He could have included himself, or maybe, like, a few other people, like the family. They still could have known, and just do it in one spell. Or if he knows beforehand, like, before you start casting the spell immediately, like, obviously, Peter's not going to want his entire family to forget about him and all everyone he loves. So, like, maybe ask. To be fair, though, it is kind of in Doctor Strange's character to just be like, yeah, I'm good at everything. I have a bit of an ego, and he just kind of does stuff. Point is, he could have just simply asked Peter a few questions about the specifics before casting the spell, or asked about the college process, because he kind of said, like, couldn't get into college. To be fair to Peter, though, I am in college, and I also didn't know you could just call them. It makes sense, but it's like, they said no. I would have done the same thing, been like, they said no. Okay, I'm done. That's it. No, I'm not gonna like go out there and ask them. But I guess he should have probably, especially if his next step was so drastic. Like, just talk to someone. So both of them are kind of at fault. Sandman's motivations were sus. What? Why is he fighting them? He clearly just wanted to go home, and he was like going along with whatever Peter said. Peter's just trying to cure them, so he could have just sat there and been like, hey, how's it going? He's making their lives harder. Like, the ones that were giving them trouble were Electro and Green Goblin. Those guys were insane. So maybe just help the Spider-Man take out those two. That could have been something. And Lizard's just weird. What the hell was up with Lizard? He like was hiding in the van. Why didn't he come into the building? It's not to be inconspicuous because look at everyone else that came in. They look all wacky. And then he hides in the van and breaks out. He kind of runs to the building, slams Peter, and just disappears. It's a bit weird how the timing of everything works because like Green Goblin is dead. And like Doc Ock is not in their time. And then because like they talked about like, oh, you're dead. And then when they all go back, did they go back to the exact instant? Because they came from the instant they were about to die. They were talking about all the way up. Yeah, this is what I meant by like the specifics of the spell are a little bit confusing. It's like, this doesn't make sense when you think about it too much. But time travel and multiverse never makes sense when you think about it too much. So maybe we just move on with it and say, yeah, it was a good movie. They went away. We just wave our hands. It's magic and carry on. Everything's good. And then the same thing with the spell, like, Did every single person in every single universe forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man? Because that's the only way they would have stopped coming through from the original spell. So it means everyone in every universe doesn't know Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Because if you just cast that on your universe, everyone from the other universes coming in would still know. So they would still be included. So we had to erase everyone's minds. That's big. That's big sus. The 3 Spider-Men swinging around the Statue of Liberty. That was so sick. It just looks so cool. It just looks so cool. I'm not going to forget that scene. And the last thing I wanted to add was just that at the end of the movie, you see Peter Parker has a GED book when he's moving into his apartment. So it's a little bit confusing as to why he has a GED book because, well, he was applying for colleges. He took his, I'm assuming, SAT and ACT. So he has his test scores and he applied. I think at that point you kind of know essentially that, like, yeah, I'm going to graduate. I don't have a problem with this. So he shouldn't have failed high school then and had to take a GED test or maybe not finish high school. The only thing I can think of with that is maybe because everyone forgot who he is, the school erased his records so he doesn't exist and has to take a GED as if he's like not part of the system. That's the only explanation I could see for that because he's clearly smart enough. He should be able to pass. There's not really a problem. And, he was applying to colleges. Maybe he didn't get into them, but that doesn't mean he can't pass high school. College and high school are very different. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're slightly interested, I definitely recommend you go out there and watch it. If you want more movie review videos like this, go ahead and like this video. If you're interested in my other content, where I usually make gaming videos or a few instructional videos, go ahead and subscribe and let me know in the comments what you thought. All right, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time.